Nick Saban knows what he saw. I guarantee if you got Saban off camera, he would tell you what he really believes.
Hey, welcome to Beat Everyone, potentially changing the name to Beat Someone or Beat Anyone. We'll see. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com, and we've attempted to shake off the Florida State game to course correct for what lies ahead for Alabama, but it hasn't been easy at all. Suddenly, one game into the 2025 season, there's chaos in Tuscaloosa. People's pets' heads are falling off. I mean, the fans don't know what to believe. They don't know what to do. And Kalen DeBoer's future seems to be in doubt. I can't think of anyone better to help us figure this out than our guest today. Joining me now is the man who is all over ESPN right now, all over SEC Network, the host of the Paul Finebaum Show on ESPN Radio 2, the one and only Paul Finebaum. Paul, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on. And what bothers me before we even get into the details is that we wait for so long. We count down the football season. It's epic. People plan weddings around it, and all the things that you people write about and talk about. And it just feels like it's over after one weekend.
All the hype was worth it, wasn't it? All the anticipation, all the money spent, right?
Yeah.
All totally worth it. People can find you oftentimes on the Matt Berry show the morning after a college football Saturday, and you went on there. He said something really sobering, right? That people are concluding that what they saw on Saturday against Florida State, it just doesn't look like Alabama anymore. Now, almost 2 years removed from Nick Saban and what he established as the Alabama brand. And I totally agree with what you said, Paul. Everything looked right on paper. The roster, the coaching staff, all the experts said that Alabama's a contender, and everybody was wrong. And you said that the issue isn't how bad Alabama is. It's really about what happens to Kalen DeBoer now, who has this $70 million buyout, and the schedule now looks more daunting than it certainly did entering the season. So, Paul, what happens?
Yeah, well, I think it's a week by week proposition now to sound like I work at ESPN and I'm just throwing out cliches. Um, but that's all that really is. That's all you can really do. Kalen DeBoer is not going to change. He's exactly who Greg Byrne hired a couple of years ago. And we've all met him. We've all been around him. And he's not Nick Saban. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I had the opportunity this year at the Regents tournament of interviewing DeBoer and Saban back to back. And I don't even know if there's a good comparison because maybe on my final day as a as an employee here, I'll give you what I really would like to say. Um, but it's so dramatically different. You have one man who is in complete control, who has enormous charisma, who commands the stage, and another guy who we're told is a really good football coach, but has no charisma and doesn't command anything. Now, why do I bring that up? Some of the players are the same on these teams, and not many. And Saban had command of the program. I don't think DeBoer does. Uh, whether he serves yogurt or soft ice cream, it doesn't matter. He doesn't connect. And it's no longer a small sample size. We have 14 games. Everybody knows the stats. Everybody knows what happened and has happened since the second half began at the Georgia game last September. It has been surreal. And while Saturday should not have been an upset or should have been a surprise because we've seen all this, I was led to believe, as some of you were, that it would be different. And I'm using Kalen DeBoer as my primary source. I sat next to him in Atlanta, Ben, and he said the number one thing we have going for us is we retained our roster. He was so excited by that. And then the Ryan Grubb thing, which we talked about ad nauseum, and then other people. We've had Greg McElroy report back 2 weeks ago that he had been at practice. I mean, it's one of the top analysts in college football. He'd been at practice, and the only concern, special teams. I don't even remember the special teams Saturday. They were okay, and they were awfully busy too.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, you're right. The contrast, it couldn't be more apparent, and it was clear as day during the opening press conference, right? And I remember Nick Saban's opening press conference 17, 18 years later, and now what can you tell me about the Kalen DeBoer introductory press conference? But that's neither here nor there at this point. We know that they're different, and we've been trying to tell ourselves that they are different, and that's okay. But to digress here for just a second from Kalen DeBoer, you mentioned Nick Saban, right? You talked about the blame game on the Matt Berry Show. Whenever things go wrong, you look for who's responsible. There's media. There's Kalen DeBoer in this situation. You mentioned Nick Saban. You mentioned that he had talked about visiting practice, noticing a culture change, right, Paul? What about the way that Nick Saban exited Alabama? Like, he could do it on whatever terms that he wanted. He obviously earned that. But sort of dropping that bomb when he did right after the Rose Bowl loss, surprising everybody, giving essentially no heads up. Do you think that put Alabama behind the eight ball at all in terms of moving the program forward?
Well, it's a good question, and it's easy to say yes. A few callers yesterday started to blame Saban, but before you blame Saban, he didn't have a great choice. He was in the playoffs. It would have been better for Alabama had Saban lost to Georgia, and he announced in mid-December that he was, the Citrus Bowl was going to be his last game, or the Orange Bowl would have been the game because that's where Georgia went. And but he couldn't. He did wait a week, which I think he was entitled to. What Saban's departure on that day meant was this: that Caleb Downs left, best defensive player in college football. A couple other players left last year, and Alabama's future quarterback left, Julian Sayin. And I mean, we've all read John Talty's book. Apparently, DeBoer got his name wrong, which isn't a good thing to do when you spent the kind of money that Alabama has trying to recruit him from California. So those are critical factors. I know you may say, "Well, you're not really answering my question." I'm not really eager to have a headline read that Paul Finebaum is blaming Nick Saban for the current problems. I've dealt with you people before, so the question I have now is that would Saban quit saying things on TV that he really probably doesn't believe? Now I watched Saban Monday night, and does anyone really believe what he said? That they have a chance to really get better. I mean that's what the high school principal says when the local team has a bad opening game. Nick Saban knows what he saw. I guarantee if you got Saban off camera, he would tell you what he really believes. And what I think he really believes is that this team is not disciplined. They don't play hard. They're prima donnas. Yes, we're in the NIL era, and we're seeing some of the result of that. Two players on the team played the hardest, according to people that grade films. They happened to come over from Washington with DeBoer, so which would lead people to wonder, would Austin Mack be the answer at quarterback? Obviously, that's probably not the answer. But I'm giving you a long answer here, guys, because there isn't a quick fix. This is not going to correct itself overnight.
Well, your show is already appointment television and radio, but as soon as the scoreboard clock hits zero, whenever Alabama loses, it becomes T-minus whenever until the Paul Finebaum Show's callers hit the phone lines. One of your all-time greats, legend, didn't disappoint the Monday after the Florida State loss, but it was really his call the next day, the final hour and the next day that caught my attention, Paul. He lit into Kalen DeBoer. He called him meek. He called him Brian Harsin 2.0. He called him sharp as a bowling ball. He said, this is a divorce. There's nothing you can do to fix this, basically. Paul, you have followed and really understood the Alabama fan base for a long time through many coaches, obviously not counting Kalen DeBoer's predecessor, Nick Saban. What temperature are the fans reaching right now? Like, are we already at Mike Dubose or Mike Shula levels of outrage and disappointment, or is this somehow different?
It is not different. This loss seemed to be worse than Vanderbilt. And the reason I say that is Vanderbilt followed an unbelievable win. So you could look at it and go, okay, the game's on the road, generational quarterback for Vanderbilt. And Alabama just took the week off. I mean, that happens. It's not unusual in Vegas to look at a game like that and go the other side. I read one, maybe it was in AL.com, they talked about this, or some publication. This was close to DEFCON 3. No, this is not DEFCON 3. This is DEFCON 1. I cannot remember a time when after one game I heard this type of meltdown other than maybe 2000 when Alabama started the season number 3 in the country and went out to the Rose Bowl and lost to UCLA. And that was different because that was coming off of an SEC championship. That was coming off of a guy who just got a contract extension that he shouldn't have. And after he was outed for having an affair with his secretary. But let's not go back 25 years. This is completely different. This is a guy that we believed in. This isn't a guy that just got the job because they pushed the other guy out and brought in Mike DeBoer to save recruiting. I mean, this was a highly sought after guy. And this is what we're getting as fans. And it's so if you said to me, like, give me a roadmap back, it comes down to probably having to beat Georgia. Because you have to make this game up somewhere. You already have the tough games. You have Tennessee, you have LSU, you have Oklahoma, you have Auburn, you're at South Carolina and Missouri. The team the other day would not beat any of these schools. So what you have to hope is the next time we see this team in a meaningful game, and I know that some are telling me, well, don't forget this weekend in Wisconsin. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to foolishly move on from those games. You may be calling me in a week and a half and go, are you sure you want to say that about Wisconsin? But that's what I'm saying right now. The SEC games are going to define whether he can get this thing turned around.
Yeah, I mean, you said week by week earlier about what the situation is now. Not a place you want to be, obviously. But again, quoting legend, Paul, he addressed Alabama's athletics director, Greg Byrne, directly during that call. He said, quote, do what you need to do. I don't care if you need to borrow, steal, get a loan, stand on a street corner with a sign. I'll work to fire Kalen DeBoer. Do whatever the hell you need to do to run his ass off. End quote. Paul, after the Vandy game last year, we were talking about patience running thin with DeBoer already among the Alabama fan base. I mean, that was before Tennessee, Oklahoma, and then that disaster of a bowl game in bowl loss against Michigan. Now he opens the season like this. We know the buyout is huge, nearly Jimbo Fisher levels of huge, but you've seen it all with the coaching carousel. Do you see a reality or a scenario where DeBoer is out as soon as this year?
I'll give you the standard line, then I'll give you the reality line. My gut tells me it's hard to believe that he would be fired at the end of this year. Now, there is a scenario here that it just becomes untenable. By that, you start losing games you're not supposed to lose, like the one Saturday, the last Saturday. You drop a Wisconsin game, but I don't even think that matters. I mean, let me just give you this. Go through the games. I think I have them in my mind. Lose to Georgia. What's the next game? Can you tell me? You lose to Vanderbilt at home. Is that unrealistic? Missouri and South Carolina and Tennessee are all in. I mean, let's just say you lose most of these games, and you lose to Tennessee and LSU, of course, and Oklahoma and Auburn. I mean, are you going to tell me that if this guy bombs out in the SEC with a 3-6 record, a 3-5 record, he's going to be able to hold on? I mean, so that's the real problem. I mean, I don't really know what to tell you on these SEC games because right now it's hard to really. Until we see the Georgia game, it's going to be very difficult to find a lane for him to win these games.
Well, Paul, Chris Lowe and Andy Staples of On3 Sports, they reported that it isn't just Alabama fans like Legend and the many other callers on your shows, readers of our website. They say now that boosters and power brokers are pretty restless at the moment. In their story, a longtime big shot donor said, quote, we're spoiled. We always have been. But when we put a team out there that looks uninspired, like we have far too many times these past 2 years, and lose to teams that were clearly more talented than, that's when it becomes a problem and not just a bunch of spoiled fans griping, end quote. Paul, again, you've covered this coaching carousel before for so long. You're an expert here. At what point do the boosters, the trustees, the donors, the money Like, when is it finally time that they draw the line with the head coach?
Well, I'm going to side with the people that call the show that I do every day because I think they are fairly representative. I know the folks that sit in the ivory tower often like to look down on them and say they're not representative. But not only are they representative, the people you just mentioned are listening on the way home, so they're hearing it. They're reading it on AL.com. So they're far more important than they used to be when we didn't have social media and we didn't have all these ways to communicate. Uh, the one thing that Alabama has had a lot of changes on the board with the head of the board. There's a new president. I assume he started. These are important factors. So no new president ever wants to get involved in a coaching situation like this. And you have to think if you realistically, if you can find a way to get out of the contract. And what does that mean? That means you call Jimmy Sexton and go, is there a number you'll take so we don't get in a protracted litigation while you're out there trying to find Kalen DeBoer another job? And that he is hireable. So Kalen DeBoer might say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses. I'm going to take $30 million. I'm going to go to Maryland and be the head coach there, which isn't terrible. And $30 million will pay a lot of bills. So I think that's probably one way out. But I also want to say just because some boosters are grumbling to somebody in the media, I don't think that means a whole lot. Greg Byrne is the key here. And I've asked Greg Byrne. I think you were at my show last year after the Vanderbilt loss, and he was all in on Kalen DeBoer. And I believe I saw Greg about 3 weeks ago on a plane, and he was still all in. That's before the game. But I bet if you had him right now on this podcast, he wouldn't sound any different than he did last year.
He has to, right? Because, I mean, that's his big hire. I mean, like, let me quote the legend one more time here, Paul, before we get you out of here. I mentioned that he addressed Greg Byrne directly, but to close the call, it felt like there was a raw nerve that had been hit with one of the most public fans on your show. He said, quote, "I knew we had the wrong man. You need to go too, dude. You don't know what Alabama is. You don't know, brother," end quote. Now, Byrne has always projected himself as fan first, a man of the people, right? Kalen DeBoer was obviously very publicly his hire. And as great as Nate Oates has been in Tuscaloosa, they could make 20 Final Fours in a row, Paul. The one that you've always got to get right is football. If the unthinkable happens and Alabama does, in fact, make a move this year, what do you think that means for Byrne in the next hire?
Well, it's complicated. I think Byrne is well thought of. So I don't think. Remember, Scott Strickland was on the hot seat last year with Billy Napier. He won a basketball national championship. He just got a 3-year extension. So I think Greg Byrne's the wrong person to go after right now. But I talked to a booster. I'll sound like you guys now, quoting everybody but legend. On Monday, I was up in New York and I called somebody I consider to be as good a read, a barometer reading, and this is not just some guy who gets a couple of bucks. Okay, this is a major league booster, and I said, "Is there any support right now?" And he said, "No." But that was not a surprising answer. And he also said that something has to change very quickly for people to come back in. I mean, I was all in on this guy Saturday morning, so I hate to jump off the horse here, but I do think we have to be real, and what you're doing here is very real. This is not some manufactured media story. This is a legitimate situation for Kalen DeBoer that at the moment, we gotta get one more, I'll quote another Finebaum caller, Brandon the pressure washer. He's the Nick Saban of pressure
That's right.
washers.
That's right.
For 1 week last year, after Georgia, he called in our show and said, "I'm Brandon, the Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer of pressure washers." He called in after the Vanderbilt game and said, "I'm no longer the Kalen DeBoer of pressure washers." He called in Monday, and I actually had to interrupt him. It was getting so vicious. He was worse than legend. He said he was asking people on our airwaves to start raising money and I said, "Listen, we can't do a telethon here. That's not what we do." But that's how serious he was. This guy goes down to the DeBoer show on whatever night it is. He calls in the DeBoer show You can't find a more avid DeBoer guy. And now, so the problem for DeBoer is he doesn't even have the base anymore, the hardcore. I mean, the people that will be there, doesn't matter what the score is, doesn't matter what time it is, doesn't matter what the temperature is. They're waiting for the plane when it comes in.
Well, Paul, the silver lining here, ideally, Florida State's a playoff team, right? And this is just one loss, and it's week to week, and Alabama's still in the picture.
All those things are true until they're not.
Hear him on ESPN Radio, see him on the SEC Network and ESPN a lot lately. The host of the Paul Finebaum Show, our good friend Paul Finebaum. Paul, thank you so much, sir.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.